Welcome back to the deep dive. We are continuing our really intensive look at Oliver's monumental retrospective project, A Dawn on the Earth.
Monumental is definitely the word for it.
It really is. As you know, this album is slated to drop around his 50th birthday. That's in 2026. And it's shaping up to be, well, so much more than just a collection of songs.
Oh, absolutely. It's a profound document. I've been calling it the ultimate moral audit.
A moral audit. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Oliver is laying bare 30 years of his life. He's holding up the stable, committed self of 2025.
The man writing songs for his wife Dragna and his daughter Marina.
Exactly. He's holding that man up against the raw, the chaotic, the often nihilistic self of the 1990s.
And he's forcing us, the listeners, to really measure the distance, the exact distance he had to travel to get from there to here.
It's a huge journey.
And we've already grappled with two of the big foundational tracks from that chaotic period. We sort of established that these demos, they form a trilogy of despair.
They really do.
First, we had The City of Death, that aggressive heavy metal track from '96.
Right, which is the sound of ultimate internal surrender. Pure psychological collapse.
He was basically declaring his own identity terminal, you
Yeah.
know, that his internal world was judged as just entirely toxic and doomed.
And if City of Death was that internal surrender, then we moved on to Hey, Johnny.
The rock ballad from '95.
And that track presented the moral failure,
Yeah.
the cautionary tale, the brutal, fatal inability to actually fight.
Johnny chose the chemical escape.
He chose dope over the necessary active effort of self-containment. And the result was functional death, a total loss of identity.
So if you've dealt with the toxic self and then you've dealt with the failed fight, the failure to apply your own will, what's the next logical step?
Well, for an artist trying to rationalize his own suffering, you have to look outward.
Exactly. And that brings us to our focus today, the third and final cornerstone of these 1990s demos, the country blues ballad, Where is the Justice? Also from 1995.
This song is so pivotal. I mean, the young Oliver absolutely needed this track.
Why? What did it give him?
If the first two songs established all the fatal flaws of the self, the internal doom, the moral evasion, where is the justice, is where he finally pivots. He moves past self-condemnation.
And starts questioning the external world.
The fairness of it, the structure, the entire moral foundation of everything outside of himself.
Okay, let's really drill down into that. I think our mission for this deep dive has to be exploring how this search for external justice, how that became the intellectual bridge,
The necessary final step.
necessary final step in this 90s trilogy that allowed him to move past that nihilism and, maybe most importantly, adopt the kind of perseverance he would need to get to where he is now.
Yes.
So the core question is, why was condemning the system so vital to his own survival?
I think we have to start with the sound, the sonic landscape, because the genre shift here is so intentional and it's profound.
It's a huge signal.
A huge signal. The move to a country blues ballad in 1995 is the immediate, undeniable signal of a change in his psychological posture.
It's fascinating how he uses genre like that as a kind of emotional language.
It is.
I mean, The City of Death was heavy metal. That's the sound of a scream, right? Pure, unfiltered rage, a desire to just smash everything,
Yourself included.
yourself included. And Hey Johnny was this driving, epic rock tragedy. It was built for that rapid, self-destructive momentum.
So what does country blues offer that those other two just can't?
That's the question.
Well, blues and country blues specifically, it fundamentally demands reflection.
It slows you down.
It forces you to slow down. It is not about instant annihilation or some epic failure. It's about sustained endurance. It's the lament of the common man.
Okay.
It's rooted in expressing this deep, weary sorrow over hardship. But, and this is the key, always with the goal of seeking some kind of, hard-won wisdom and enduring truth
Through storytelling.
through storytelling and repetition.
Exactly. So the music itself, the very rhythm and structure, it forces this reflective, sustained pace. The narrator of City of Death, he wanted total surrender, to be buried in his failure.
Right.
The country blues narrator isn't craving death. He's, pulling back a curtain and saying, hang on a second, why does the world keep doing this to me? Why is this truth so hard to find?
It's a total shift from pure internal self-inflicted rage to this sustained, weary reflection that is aimed squarely at external structures.
There's a system.
The system. And what's also vital is the instrumentation. A country blues ballad implies something, probably acoustic, sparse, immediate,
Stripped back.
totally stripped back. And that forces the focus entirely onto the lyric and onto the narrator's voice.
Hmm.
Unlike the dense, distracting volume of metal, the vulnerability of an acoustic setting means he has to speak his truth plainly, directly to you.
It positions him as the solitary figure, just him in the road.
That simplicity, that rawness, it's the perfect vessel for this intellectual assessment of the world structure.
It's not an abstract problem anymore.
No, it's the physical, tangible weight of a world that has wronged him, and now he has to carry it on his back.
So this specific sequencing of the 3 demos is absolutely critical then.
It's everything. These 3 tracks define a powerful trilogy of, let's say, descent, rationalization, and then this crucial pivot. It's the key to his later stability.
So let's just reestablish that sequence one more time really clearly so we can all see how Where is the Justice provides the resolution that the first 2 just couldn't.
Okay, so first you have the internal collapse. That's City of Death.
Right.
And the conclusion he draws there is completely fatalistic. The self is inherently flawed, it's toxic, contaminated. The only solution is terminal isolation, self-destruction.
But okay, if that self is still capable of action, it still has moral choices to make.
Which leads directly to the moral failure of, hey, Johnny.
Where the self chose evasion, chemical numbness to avoid what you called the fight mandate.
Yes, so the self is judged as having failed this universal human requirement to struggle. And that leads to an identity crisis, functional death.
So this leaves the young Oliver in 1995 with this, an insurmountable crisis, right?
Completely.
He's self-loathing because of his internal state, and he's morally compromised because he failed to fight. Where does he go from there?
He has to externalize the blame. There's nowhere else to go. And that brings us right to systemic failure in Where is the Justice?
This track basically asserts that even if the self had fought...
Which Johnny failed to do.
Right. Even if he'd mustered the will, the external world itself is fundamentally untruthful. It's rigged. It's unjust.
And this is the crucial psychological maneuver. This structural condemnation, this idea that the world is rigged. It amplifies all the chaos of the 1990s that defined his youth.
But paradoxically, it offers him a way out of total self-hatred.
Precisely. If the collapse wasn't entirely his fault, you see. If the rules of the game were corrupt from the start.
Then the self-destructive tendencies, like the dope in Hey Johnny or the desire for burial in City of Death,
they become understandable responses to an impossible situation, rather than purely moral failings.
So this search for external answers becomes a survival tool.
It has to be.
It's a way to step back from the brink of total nihilism by saying, my suffering is justified because the whole mechanism for justice has failed.
And the internal focus, which was so fatalistic, it pivots toward this intellectual condemnation of society's structure.
It stops being about my flaws.
And starts being about the world's fundamental brokenness.
And that, ironically, is a much healthier target for your anger than just relentless self-hatred.
Oh, absolutely. Self-hatred is paralyzing.
Yeah.
But condemning the system, that gives you a mission.
Expose the system.
Exactly. You move from being a victim of your own soul to being a fugitive seeking vindication.
That is a huge shift in posture. But if you're going to expose the system, you need a new identity, a new framework to operate from outside of it all.
And the country blues genre gives in that immediately.
Through the lonely cowboy persona.
Yes. That establishes the narrator's entire stance against the world from the very first line.
Let's break that down. The opening lines. I'm a lonely cowboy. This dirt is my home for tonight.
I mean, the cowboy.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate literary archetype of the solitary figure, right? The individual operating outside of established legal and social rules.
He's immediately adrift, rootless.
Unbound by all the conventions that the later Oliver will cling to for dear life.
The contrast is it's so stark. The 50-year-old Oliver has made the concept of home an obsession.
It's everything to him.
We saw it in his later work, right? The partner becomes the anchor, the certainty that exists outside all the cosmic chaos, the person who allows him to finally settle his wandering soul.
And here, in 1995, his only home is literally dirt.
Which emphasizes that extreme transience, that profound, fundamental lack of permanence. He's the antithesis of the stable man he becomes.
And this archetype is driven by a very clear mission, which he states right away.
I'm looking for truth all around me. That's the story of my life.
This isn't just a casual search, you know. This quest for verifiable, objective clarity becomes his absolute driving force. It echoes those earlier themes where he was desperately begging for explanations, like in Tell Me Why.
So the cowboy is functionally defined by his mandate. Find objective truth in a world that thrives on systemic lies,
And that quest immediately puts him in collision with the world.
which manifests as the core conflict, the false accusation of murder.
The crisis is instant.
Yeah.
I swear I'm not the killer, but nobody wants the truth.
The beauty of this narrative device is that he externalizes the crisis completely. I mean, in his earlier trauma tracks, the narrator is often confessing his own sins, his own failures.
Yes.
Here, the crisis is manufactured by the outside world.
Mm-hmm.
The source of the lie isn't his own deceit, which he dealt with so much in A Night on the Earth.
No, the source is the figure of legitimate external authority.
Specifically the sheriff.
Right. When the sheriff said that I killed them, nobody wanted the proof. The sheriff embodies the system, the law, order, the social structure.
By making the sheriff the source of the lie, the track validates the narrator's entire belief in this top-down injustice. The very structure meant to protect him is actively lying to condemn him.
It's a devastating setup. The world is so fundamentally corrupt that proof, the cornerstone of justice, is just rendered irrelevant the moment an authority figure speaks.
And think about that casual, cruel rejection.
It was brutal. I said I didn't do it, and they said, oh, it was you.
The simplicity of it is it's chilling. There's no trial, no complexity, no demand for evidence, no due process.
None. It's just an arbitrary accusation that is believed instantly by them, by society, the masses, the world, just because it came from the voice of power.
It signifies a profound loss of faith in any kind of civic or social mechanism for fairness.
And that realization that the truth holds zero weight against a lie from authority, that leads to the ultimate fatalistic disillusionment.
Which is captured in the song's most powerful metaphor.
Well, I tell you, justice is murdered, and I say the truth is hanged.
Let's just stay with that image for a second, because it moves so far beyond just a personal tragedy. This isn't heartbreak.
No, this is an existential conclusion about the entire foundation of society.
He's saying the core moral pillars, justice and truth, they aren't just damaged or flawed.
They're dead. They have been publicly executed by the very system that was designed to protect them. The language is so final, so aggressive, visually violent.
Justice was murdered. Truth was hanged.
It suggests a deliberate, irreversible act of corruption by the system itself.
And this level of despair, this kind of intellectual systemic nihilism, it's so different from the heavy metal nihilism of City of Death.
Completely different.
That was internalized, self-cannibalizing rage. Here, the despair is analytical. The external world is judged, it's found wanting, and he concludes that it's fundamentally untruthful and actively hostile to the innocent individual.
And the individual is just overwhelmed by a chaos that transcends any personal fault.
So when the mechanism for salvation justice has been metaphorically executed, what's the only logical response?
It's immediate, complete spiritual resignation, which is captured in that desperate, almost mocking prayer.
Oh, God. Will be damned.
It's the sound of a character accepting his fate. Not because he's guilty, but because the very structure of the world guarantees his condemnation.
It means there is no hope for relief from the external system.
None.
And if you're the young Oliver in 1995, dealing with all this deep personal trauma, and you conclude the external world is that corrupt, it just shifts the entire responsibility for your pain.
It provides a necessary external target for his anger.
And that replaces that paralyzing self-hatred with a clear external mission.
The fight changes completely. It goes from how do I fix my doomed soul to how do I survive a doomed world?
But the moment you accept that the system is rigged and justice is murdered, you lose your anchor to conventional society. So what are the immediate consequences of that conclusion?
The immediate consequence is forced isolation and flight. You have no other choice.
So the arbitrary accusation and the murdered justice, they force the cowboy into this existential exile. Everybody wants me dead or alive. It's a lonely life when you're always run away and hide.
And that is the absolute antithesis of belonging. Oliver's entire journey after the 90s is about ending this lonely life by creating relational anchors.
His partner Dragana, his daughter Marina.
He sought connection as his salvation. The 1995 solution to systemic injustice is just pure, continuous evasion and total self-isolation.
There's no possibility of finding a stable home when society itself is the hunter.
None at all.
But the key here, I think, is that escape isn't just retreat, it's repositioning.
Say more about that.
Well, his immediate goal isn't to clear his name right now. It's to achieve a future state of freedom and vindication. But somewhere far away, I will find the truth for me. Somewhere where I will always be free.
Ah, that really deepens the analysis of the theme of freedom in his work.
How so?
Well, in City of Death, freedom was just the absence of struggle. It was found only in final terminal despair. Here, freedom is external and it's active. Physical distance allows him to survive, and the eventual discovery of proof will clear his name. It's still defined by escape from this unbearable reality.
But the outcome is survival and future vindication, not death.
Exactly. And this creates that fascinating paradox of the cowboy's fight.
He's running away and hide, like a classic passive response to a threat.
But his long-term goal is aggressively proactive. I will find the truth for me. He's choosing survival through evasion, but only to sustain a future offensive.
So unlike Johnny, who just chose chemical numbness to avoid the fight entirely.
The cowboy avoids the immediate suicidal confrontation, the gallows or the sheriff's gun, but he maintains this absolute long-term purpose of vindication.
The critical difference is the deferral of action rather than the surrender of purpose.
Yes.
Let's challenge that for a moment, though. Couldn't you argue that seeking external vindication is just another form of evasion? Isn't he still running from the internal work, the self-containment he needs to find peace, regardless of what the world says?
That is a brilliant point, and it's exactly why this song is so central to the whole retrospective. In 1995, for the young Oliver, this external mission was necessary for survival.
He needed it.
He had to have it. He had already judged his internal self to be toxic and failed. He couldn't trust himself. So the only viable source of purpose had to be external, a quest for tangible, objective proof.
He wasn't ready for the internal work yet.
Not at all. He needs the external mission to keep him from sinking into the abyss of his own mind.
So the tension is all in that deferral. He's postponing the confrontation, the return to show them to somewhere far away, a bit like the narrator in Life and Lies, deferring his own life change to maybe next time.
But crucially, the goal is defined. The fight is ongoing. It's just geographically postponed until he has the ammunition. He will not surrender. He will evade until he is equipped to win.
Which defines the rational path to survival when you're faced with this overwhelming systemic injustice.
You survive the day, you maintain distance, and you dedicate your existence to getting the evidence, the proof, that will eventually overturn the rigged verdict.
It's the beginning of sustained, disciplined action, even if that action is focused on flight.
Exactly.
And that leads us to the psychological mechanism that sustains this incredibly lonely, wearisome trudge. You can't just run for decades without a firm belief in a future outcome.
And that is the most important pivot in the entire track. The shift from justified despair to a firm, unwavering belief in future vindication, what I call the prophecy of redemption.
This prophecy acts as his essential psychological survival mechanism. It's the thing that functionally distinguishes this song from the total terminal collapse of City of Death.
Right. He sings, "There will come a time when the bad guys pay and the innocent go free."
That's not just wishful thinking, is it? It's a cosmic declaration.
It is. The narrator holds on to a belief in ultimate universal justice, even if the current system has murdered it. And this hope prevents that total nihilistic collapse we saw in the other demos.
The cowboy sees an inevitable cosmic correction coming, a balance that has to be restored even if he has to ride 30 years to find it.
And that belief keeps him tethered to the idea that truth fundamentally matters, even when it's being actively suppressed.
And the reward is defined so precisely. The final word will be the truth that's heard.
So the greatest reward isn't just freedom from exile or a clean slate.
No, it's public, undeniable recognition of his innocence. He needs the external world to admit it was wrong, to validate his suffering, and to restore the moral order that was executed.
And this need for external validation provides the bridge to action. It defines the commitment to the trudge.
The final mandate of the song, continuous, exhausting action.
Until those days, I will keep on writing, and I will keep on writing until I find some proof.
This is a direct, conscious response to the failure of Johnny.
Absolutely. Johnny should have kept fighting, but he surrendered. The cowboy chooses continuous action riding, which is a metaphor for perpetual motion and effort over surrendering to death or chemical escape.
Let's talk about the sound again for a second, because the music structure supports this, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The repetition of "I will keep on riding," it suggests this wearisome, determined trudge. And if you listen to the rhythmic weight of this type of country blues ballad, that persistent, heavy 68 meter, it physically embodies that feeling.
For listeners who might not be familiar with musical theory, can you just unpack what that 68 rhythmic weight feels like? Why is it right for a trudge?
Sure. So if you think about a standard rock song, it's often in 44 time. A simple marching beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. 68 is different. It's a compound meter. It gives you a feeling of a slower, heavier swing,
Less of a march.
less of a march and more of a rolling, insistent push.
Yeah.
1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a... It's the rhythm of a weary walk or a horse trotting continuously, where the effort is sustained and deliberate, not sharp and sudden.
That makes perfect sense. It's the sound of persistent, exhausting effort. It's the exact kind of difficult work that Oliver later uses that same rhythmic structure to describe in his relationship tracks.
Like in You're My Home.
Exactly. The trudge of the cowboy in 1995 is the emotional precursor to the trudge of the committed man in 2025.
The goal then becomes active and definitive. Find some proof, and then return to show them all the truth. This promise defines his entire purpose and sustains his lonely life.
He refuses to accept nihilism because he's internalized this future mission to overturn the system's lie.
And this provides the final, essential key to synthesizing the lessons from all 3 of the 1990s tracks. It's his blueprint for survival.
So let's summarize that crucial psychological mandate that allowed him to move forward.
Okay. City of Death showed that surrender leads to terminal self-contamination and isolation.
Right.
Hey Johnny showed that evasion through dope leads to functional death and the total loss of identity.
And so, Where is the Justice showed that the only viable path forward when you're faced with systemic injustice and internal chaos is perpetual active perseverance.
The keep on writing mandate, driven by the long-term objective hope of external vindication.
And this sets up the requirement for that sustained, decades-long effort that he needed to build the stability Oliver now celebrates.
He chose the trudge. He chose the difficult 68 rhythm of continuous effort over the easy escape offered by death or chemicals. He internalized the fight mandate and projected it into a future mission to find the truth.
And his ability to sustain that trudge, to keep riding for 30 years until 2025, that's why he has the hard-won stability, the home, with Dragana and Marina.
This song gave the young artist a sense of external purpose and a necessary intellectual condemnation of the world. It gave him something concrete to fight for and something justifiable to fight against that wasn't just his own self-destructive nature.
It's the moment the young man realized that his survival depended on an active commitment to truth, even if that truth had to be found alone, far away, and against the world.
And that, in essence, is the definition of the self-reliance he carried forward. He may have been running, but he was running with a singular self-imposed purpose.
Which is infinitely healthier than running with no purpose at all. So to bring our analysis of this 1995 core to a close, Where is the Justice? Really gave the young Oliver the philosophical and intellectual bridge he needed.
It absolutely did. It moved him away from fatalistic self-condemnation
To a condemnation of a fundamentally flawed system, which paradoxically created a clear mandate for action. Keep fighting for truth, even if it meant doing it in total isolation.
And Oliver's profound ability to commit to a dawn on the earth in 2025 to write new songs for his family and his future, that is the direct result of successfully internalizing and applying this keep on writing mandate for 3 decades.
He chose the difficult, continuous struggle
Over the nihilistic relief sought by Johnny and the narrator of City of Death.
The juxtaposition forced by this new album makes us measure the desperate young cowboy riding alone for external proof against the grounded, stable 50-year-old man who found his home not on the road, but through committed vulnerability with his partner.
And this brings us to the ultimate cost of justice. I mean, the cowboy seeks proof and justice as an external validation that will let him return to a society that will finally accept him.
But Oliver eventually found home and certainty internally, by putting chains on his own chaos and accepting his partner's grace, like we talked about with A Night on the Earth.
What stands out here is that the external system, the sheriff, the townspeople, they cruelly denied the young cowboy his proof and his justice.
And yet the adult Oliver found stability anyway.
Which raises important questions, something for you, the listener, to mull over as you wait for the full album. The cowboy's journey was defined by the quest for external proof.
The evidence that would clear him.
But true emotional freedom and stability, the kind Oliver finally found. Maybe that's only achieved when you stop writing for that external validation.
And instead realize that the only verifiable truth is the stability you build yourself, internally, through sustained commitment and radical vulnerability.
Does the external fight for justice eventually have to cease and become an internal one to be truly one?
Is the dawn on the earth, that moment of clarity, the exact moment the writing stops, and the necessary difficult work of staying begins?
It suggests that the promise he made, to come back and show them all the truth, might have been fulfilled. Not by delivering a piece of paper that cleared his name,
But just by surviving.
by surviving and building a life so demonstrably stable, committed, and whole that it implicitly refutes the murdered justice of his past. The life itself becomes the proof.
That is a powerful thought to sit with, especially as we anticipate hearing these newly recorded versions against the backdrop of his mature reflection. Until then, keep digging.